Hey everybody, how you doing? Beth Helvey with Michael Saunders and Company. And today is July 15th. Oh yeah, today's tax day. I just remembered that. So, today's the day that taxes got extended. So what we're going to talk about today is force majeure and COVID. And this is really kind of a weird thing that's going on. So force majeure is on the FARBAR contract, which we talked about a few days ago, and it's on the as-is contract. Force majeure is a paragraph within the contract that basically extends the contract should something happen. It's mainly in place for weather reasons. For example, when Irma hit, was it in 2017, some people had to use force majeure in order to close on their properties or to extend other parts of it. And I think it was 2014, 2015, that bad snowstorm hit the Northeast. Here's why. So when Irma hit, people who were trying to close on a specific date couldn't. And the reason they couldn't was there was no electricity in certain places. They couldn't get there, especially if they were coming in from out of town. Their travel could very well have been delayed. Wires weren't happening. Without electricity, there's no wires, things like that. Hi, Mike. And here's another thing. So I think it was 2014 where the bad Northeast snowstorms. Good morning to you too, Mike. Correct me if I'm wrong on that date. I do know that there were some issues with travel there as well. My mother, for example, got stuck in Pittsburgh for a week because her flight wasn't leaving. The reason that's an issue is because so much of what we do contractually and to close a property happens through FedEx. It is not unusual for us to close on properties either with our sellers or with our buyers who are in another state. And if FedEx isn't running, we're not closing because we have to have those documents to actually close properties. If you're getting a loan, you must have a wet signature on your loan documents. This cannot be done electronically. If FedEx isn't running, then we're not closing. So for those people who got caught up in that, I think it was like a 2-week time period until things got caught back up. Hi, Ross. Then things got slowed down. So back to force majeure. It's really for what they call acts of God. Earthquakes are included and acts of terrorism are included as well. And what the force majeure clause says in the contract is if something occurs that delays your closing, the contract will be extended automatically by 7 days after that activity or incident is over. So for example, with Irma, if you were delayed because of Irma, you had 7 days after electricity came back on in your area to get everything put together to close, basically is what that happens. So is COVID under force majeure? Right now it's not. And here's why. We're dealing with a pandemic, and that, strictly speaking, doesn't fall under the force majeure as it's written. So according to the Florida Realtors, because they put out some information on this recently, there's no precedent right now as to whether or not this falls under an act of God, which is essentially a weather-related issue. There is no legal history on this one. What they're doing is they're taking phone calls, the Florida hotline for realtors, which is being answered by attorneys. What they're doing is they're taking all this information and trying to make sense of it. So I'm reading from the Florida Realtors Association right now. What they're saying is let me back up. Not every contract has a force majeure. The FARBAR does, and the as-is does. If you're using a CRISP, C-R-I-S-P, which is an older contract, I see them maybe once a year. Not many people use CRISP anymore. That one doesn't have it. So if you are concerned about force majeure, especially right now, because we are in hurricane season. So COVID notwithstanding, we are in hurricane season. What they're saying is that, strictly speaking, that COVID does not fall under force majeure. What they are saying is that they're still doing research on it, they're still taking calls on it, they're still looking into case history on it, and they're not positive it won't. Okay, now what they're saying is there are people who are having uncertain feelings about the future due to COVID. They're worried about the state of the market. They're worried about their job. They're worried about their health. They're worried about all these sort of things. The worry does not fall under force majeure. If you are under contract and due to COVID, maybe you lose your job, maybe you are furloughed, maybe you are hospitalized. If you're hospitalized, obviously you can't sign your closing documents. If you lose your job, obviously, then you're not going to get your loan. And then you have that out right there because your loan won't get approved. And then you'll get your escrow back. But what they're saying right now is that they're not saying it makes the ability to perform the contract, which means closing, impossible. That's what their current status is. So if you are concerned about the market, about COVID, about any of that in relation to COVID, you need to understand that if you get into your contract, with the exception of a major incident, you lose your job, you become hospitalized, then you cannot use COVID right now as a reason to get out of your contract. If you do, then you're going to lose your escrow. Okay, and then there's other issues that come up with that. So if that is a concern with you, you need to have a really, really frank discussion with your realtor about that. Okay, you can, if you do the as-is contract, again, you've got that 15 days to walk away from the contract for any reason whatsoever. You can wake up and decide that the Florida just isn't speaking to you right now, and you don't want to buy a house in Florida. Or you want to wait 6 months, or you want to wait until next year. There's a lot of reasons. You do not have to give a reason, you just walk away. You don't have to give a reason. But what they're saying right now is that it's not happening. They're also saying they have heard a few cases, and the few cases they've heard, they've denied. So be really careful with this. And I know a lot of people probably feel like COVID would fall under an act of God, but strictly speaking, an act of God is weather related, not necessarily pandemic related. And again, this could change. Our contract is always changing, law is always changing, but this is unprecedented territory, literally, for contracts. Hi, Cindy. So as of right now, that is not a reason to be able to get out of your contract. Sellers, that is not a reason for your buyers to be able to get out of your contract. That doesn't mean that buyer and seller can't come to terms and come to an agreement on their own. That's always allowed. You can do what you want. But if seller's holding firm, buyer, you can't get out of your contract without paying. So that's the nuts and bolts of it. That's a very, very basic explanation. There's a whole lot more legalese behind this, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to get into it. I'm just telling you what the information they're giving us as realtors is. And as of right now, COVID is not a reason to fall under force majeure. And that's how it's going. If it changes, of course, I'll let you know. Florida Realtors Association, we get emails every day. They're very good about keeping us updated. And of course, our local Realtor Association is also very good about keeping us updated. So I hope you all are having a good day. If this changes, I'll let you know. And it is July 15th. It is beautiful. We're going to be hot and muggy and humid. I took the dog for a walk this morning and came back in sweating after just a little bit. Normal Florida weather. So if you do get the opportunity to go outside, wear your sunscreen, drink lots of water, and I will talk to you tomorrow. If you have any questions on this, throw me a comment in the DMs or in my comment section, and I can forward the Florida Realtors article to you. I'd be happy to send this to you. And if you have any questions on it, please do so. If you have any questions on real estate in general, please let me know, because I love hearing what you all have to ask. I hope you all are having a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.